Welcome back to The Line. The mystery of the West Mesa women now officially stretches into a second decade. Community members held a ceremony this week to honor the 11 women and one unborn baby found buried in a mass grave on the west side of the city exactly 10 years ago. Many of the victims had been missing for months or even years, and police say most had ties to prostitution or possibly sex trafficking, as well as substance abuse issues. Now, investigators say their cases are still open. They continue to receive tips, but to date there have been no arrests in these murders. And organizers of last weekend's memorial say it's important to remember the victims as well. And the ways to find out to protect our community's most vulnerable moving forward. And Mary, a tough question, but as a community, did this discovery serve as some sort of wake-up call? Or are we sort of in the same place talking about vulnerable women, vulnerable people? Even if it was prostitution, even if it was drug and sex trafficking, these folks deserved better. Have we learned something?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. And I think that that's why this 10-year anniversary and the whole point was we don't want to forget, because these women were missing for years before they were found.
That's right.
And we don't want to forget. And what the Street Safe New Mexico is doing, and I like what they're doing, is they're going out on Route 66 on Friday nights.
That's right.
They're passing out clothes, they're passing out necessities, they're getting to know the women so that if these women are missing again, somebody's going to know about it, and let's get a hold on the problem sooner. You know, and I think that maybe is a good takeaway, because at first when I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, it's been 10 years, you know, and it's just so hard to believe that it's been 10 years, but I'm glad that we had this service, and for the families of these women, you know, now, and there's going to be a park, a memorial for them. I think that is great, because that's their sisters, their aunties, their daughters, their moms that are there. And so that part, I think, you know, is a good, you know, is a good point.
I agree with you completely on that. Absolutely. You know, Sophie, I say again, I mean, I wonder if we underserved this situation because we classified these women as somehow others.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
And you know, and that's what's happening with crime against women on the reservations. That's what's happening. I mean, until relatively recently in U.S. history, any woman could
Violence Against Women
be raped by her husband and was not considered rape. I mean, the steps that we have made in terms of our understanding of the impacts of violence against women and the breadth of violence against women, they seem very recent to me. I am reminded in this situation too, though, of the many years that rape kits went untested in New Mexico and across the country. The incredible steps forward that we've seen in terms of DNA testing, the serial killer in California who was finally caught, allegedly, because of DNA. Certainly, you hope that technology moves forward in such a way that a killer or killers like those who perpetrated the West Mesa murders couldn't anticipate that technology is going to catch up with them, because that's what we've got right now. We don't apparently have good clues. There were suspects 10 years ago, and none of them have been arrested.
But they're still looking. I mean,
they are still looking.
Yeah, they are.
They have to come to some resolution.
This comes in the context. This comes in the context of an increased understanding that our police and police across the country did not take violence against women as seriously as they needed to. They still don't in many circumstances. And I mean, you brought up prostitution. We still have this question in some people's minds, is it rape if she's a prostitute? Hell yeah. Pardon me, PBS. But yes it is. And that uncertainty leads to, I think, can often lead to an unwillingness to investigate, to follow through, to prosecute, et cetera.
Even have a department in charge of these things, have a special unit of some sort, have something going on there. You know, Michael, this just shows up the idea that obviously, you know, services and help for people. This is a condition of what happens when you don't have these kind of treatment centers and things. People have to go out and find money any which way they can.
Well, let me just say, talk about securing some borders. Maybe we need to secure Bernalillo's borders. For this population and for this part of the community. They tend to be poor, marginalized, and generally speaking, although not totally, women of color.
That's right.
So there is a segment, we have a mentality, there is a mentality out there, I don't share it, but it is out there, that there are populations and segments of the community that are sort of viewed as disposable.
Throwaway.
Or
Right,
untrustworthy
exactly.
for some reason.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so the time and effort that needed to go into this when these women were disappearing, somebody dropped the ball.
Right.
6 years they
That's
were
right.
gone.
Yes.
Incredible.
So
Think about it.
and it was also mentioned that this is the largest crime scene in New Mexico history, and so for those women and their families and their children, this is not. They were not given the attention and the respect and justice that they deserved.
That's right.
And it remains to be seen how this will turn out. Hopefully, as you referenced, there needs to be programs and social services and those sort of programs to help this population, these people, kind of get moving in the right direction and not get caught up and end up in the streets. And
Exactly right.
because it's more than just the women; it's their children, their family, their grandparents, their
Exactly.
parents,
Yep.
and the community suffers at large.
But at least there's going to be a memorial, a place for them to go. And
right.
I think that they won't be forgotten. And I think that's kind of the whole point of this 10-year thing.
Make something out of it that we can.
Exactly.
If we can't bring them back,
I
at least we
know,
can,
but at least,
you know.
so look,
That's right.
We've got to remember them.
That's
and
right.
remember where we were.
That's
and
right.
it's-
And we need to
Exactly
make
right.
sure that this doesn't happen again.
That's right.
Exactly.
You know, Tom, one of the interesting bits of this scenario is legislatively there's some movement this session to have some changes if a woman is caught or arrested for prostitution under the age of 18. There's now an automatic push to go to rehab or, you know, instead of punishment, getting services rendered. And that sounds great, and you know, again, where have we been on this? But is that a decent start as you hear it? Because a lot of the problem with underage women, we got sex trafficking issues going on as well with that as well. So it's tricky.
Human trafficking is an issue, and it needs to be addressed. The fact that the conversation is continuing in Santa Fe is a good thing.
Right.
I think that the comments that Mary, Sophie, and Michael have all made are, are solid. One of the things that Michael had mentioned that got me thinking is what are we doing as a community to provide assistance to this, to the population that needs the assistance, and it gets me thinking about what was going on 10 years ago. Well, I'll tell you one of the things that was going on at least 8 years ago, and that was a fumbling of the behavioral health services
Yes.
to New Mexico residents.
Yes.
And that is a tremendous crime that we are still seeing the ramifications of today.
right.
And
That's right.
the whole Department of Health and Human Services and Behavioral Health Services Department, that is, I think, one of the great crimes that was levied on the people of New Mexico. And so we need to be able to do something. And I realize it's not a turnkey operation. There are a lot of great studies and surveys
right.
going on, but we have to recognize that when we look at how New Mexico has really dropped the ball.
That's right. So another wrinkle on that bill I mentioned
Sure.
is that it would also allow law enforcement to take a child suspected of being a victim of sex trafficking into protective custody without a court order. And that's an interesting step, isn't it? I know, right? There's a lot of ramifications there.
One does prefer to see some checks on. Because we don't, speaking further back in our history, we don't have a great history in New Mexico with taking children from their families. And again, going back to families of color, children of color, I think that we need to be sure that we are very thoughtful and very careful in how we handle that particular issue. I know that there's a great deal of, we've had some horrific, high-profile cases here in New Mexico with children even being trafficked by, prostituted by their own families. But we cannot return to a period where children are pulled away from their families without proper checks and balances.
I appreciate Mary mentioning the memorial. The city
Yeah,
broke
right.
ground last summer. I think it's the right thing to do, certainly. We have to honor these women somehow.
We do.
They paid
We
the
do.
ultimate sacrifice. If you really think about it, we do this for
Exactly.
soldiers. We should be able to, they're not less than. And the idea that I really like what Street Safe New Mexico is doing as well.
I do
I'm glad
too.
you brought those
I
guys
think that
up.
that's a
Yeah.
real. I think that's a real good point. But something else. I don't know if we have time.
Please.
Congresswoman
You can do it in 15
Holland,
seconds.
Thank you, yes.
Congresswoman Holland spoke to the legislature and said there are missing Indigenous women
That's right.
and young girls, and we need to focus on that.
right.
And they need more law enforcement. We need broadband, because some of these guys, they have a cell phone, but they can't call for help.
right.
So we've got
That's
to
right.
focus on that.
And
they're
Albuquerque
not
is one of those
forgotten.
places where it happens
exactly.
so
I mean,
much
it's a
too.
huge,
That's
huge
right.
population,
That's
and so
right.
she wants a task force to study that. And I think, thank you for bringing that to our
Exactly.
attention.
Exactly right. Have to leave that conversation there for now. But we want to know what you think about this issue or any other topic of interest. Drop us a line at NewMexicoInFocus.org or weigh in on Facebook.